I don't believe that balance exists. I believe it's wholeness.
I'm whole to begin with, but I have work to do.
Wholeness to me is being able to be your own bridge to your heart, through your heart.
After a heartbreaking divorce in her early 20s, Lexi was gifted a journal that became her lifeline to healing. You will soon agree that she is a role model for caring for her mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical self. Her unapologetic reclaiming of her true self is refreshing. She has since created her own grief journal that you must get your hands on if you or a loved one is dealing with any kind of loss. I am so excited to see how far Lexi goes in life, and her first stop will soon be as an expert at the Wholeness Network with her own channel of work in the Wholeness Library. Subscribe wherever you are listening, and then tell us what you think.
In 2019, I found this podcast. I'll pimp it out. It's the Skinny Confidential podcast. And they were like building their businesses at the time, and they were all about productivity and wellness. And also, I have always had really chronic acne. And so I am very aware of the things I put in my body. I've always been like that. And even going back to that, I have struggled with hormones since junior high. So I was on birth control in 7th grade. So I was on a cheer team with these teeny tiny girls, and I had gained weight from birth control, and I could not figure out what was wrong with me. So I downloaded MyFitnessPal on Christmas in 2012. I was like a literal baby. Yes. And I would count my calories. I would wake up with my parents and go to the gym with them at 5 a.m., go to cheer practice, count my calories, and nothing was working because I was on birth control, but I didn't know that.
Right.
So that's probably when it started.
So it's like finding another way.
Yeah.
Finding another way.
So trying to look at things holistically, but I was 14. I didn't have all the information to do that holistically.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I think my health, the body piece, where I became aware of that. Spiritually, I feel like I've always been very spiritual.
Yeah.
Even when I take personality quizzes, that's always my top. I'm my number one characteristic is spiritual. I'm very spiritual. So I feel like I've always had that piece that my inner dialogue, I feel like it's a conversation with God. I'm not talking to myself. It's with a higher being.
Yep.
But the mental piece, I think, was in 2019. I discovered that podcast. I was like, oh, wow, this is how you set goals. You can set a goal and then find systems to do it. And I was just very interested in that whole goal-getting, productivity
the logical,
piece.
The creative. Yeah.
Because I am very multi-passionate and creative.
Yeah.
And sometimes that feels scattered. So learning that piece of the mental toughness and those systems, I was it was an unlock for me. So in 2019, I really dug into that. And then with that also came self-help. That was my first introduction to self-help as well. And so for a full year, I was doing all of this work on myself. And then a year later, I got divorced, or my relationship kind of imploded before my eyes. And it happened really fast and suddenly. But now looking back, now that I've healed from it, I can see exactly where the dominoes fell. But long story short, that's my mind, body, spiritual, when I became conscious of those things.
Yeah. So what are some of those practices? What feeds you these days?
Moving my body every day is so essential for me. I struggle with anxiety a lot, and so it helps me be really clear. I always release through yawning. So I'll be in a high fitness class, and be just yawning, or I'll be lifting weights and yawning, and it it's just that physical release. And then another thing that I always turn to is journaling. So just being able to put the pen to paper and just write out, today I feel, and write it all out.
Wow.
So even when it's just, today I feel bad, like your mind's blank, you just keep waiting and waiting and let those thoughts come. And that's when the magic happens. You like tap into your subconscious mind and you're able to like dig deeper and find things that were hidden that you didn't really even know about. And then you're like, whoa, that was weird. Like, where did that come from? Yeah. But I always feel better after those two things.
So when did you discover journaling?
I have always really loved scrapbooking.
Okay.
And journaling and blogging.
Okay.
My mom had a blog. Did you have a blog?
I did.
You did?
I did.
So my mom had a blog, and all of her friends and my aunts had blogs, and I loved reading them. I loved the pictures, and I really wanted a blog. So I made this like PowerPoint about, I was like in 6th grade or something, when people are like, why are you like this? I'm like, I was born like this.
You were.
I have literally always been like this.
Yes.
So I made a PowerPoint so that my mom would give me a blog. So I got a private blog spot, and I would just write my thoughts on there. So definitely that. And then in high school, I had this idea one day. I was like walking, I can't remember, like out of the high school parking lot or something. And my cousin, who's one of my best friends, was going on a mission. And I was like, oh my gosh, I should like make her a journal and I'll paint oranges on it because she was going to Florida. And I made it for her. I posted a picture like, good luck, Mikkel, you're going to be the best missionary. And I got 5 orders that day. Wow. Of like, oh my gosh, will you make me this journal? Will you make me this journal? And so that business happened accidentally. And because of that, I started journaling more to film my journal so that I could post about it. And I loved the documentation of it. But it was very filtered. It was like very about the pretty things. And I'd go to San Francisco and buy tons of postcards, or Florida and buy tons of postcards, and I'd glue them in the journal. So it was different. But I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved the journal
like your
part.
personal blog.
Yeah.
Because that's what it was about.
Totally. Yeah.
The blogs.
Yeah, it was.
Totally. Yeah. The adventure you were going to go on and what it was going to look like.
And then also the pictures I would take of the journal. And I know that sounds superficial, but like to me it's the passionate art behind it. Yeah. Like it's so fun for me to like take a pretty picture and edit it, and that's just, it's like painting a picture. You know, it's a creative hobby.
Yes. So in 2020 was your loss.
Yes.
That was your loss.
Yes, and I had stopped the journal company at the beginning of 2020.
Oh.
Because I just wasn't feeling, I was working 2 full-time jobs basically.
Wow.
And was feeling really strung out. So I decided to put the painting journal business on hold. Then the pandemic happened, and in like October of 2020 was when everything kind of imploded.
Yeah. During your journaling or even during your because I followed you, I've seen how you've, moved your body, how you've, you like, just like you say, you've done all those things. What were the thoughts and beliefs that maybe you discovered or that you had to let go of? Like, what are some of the things that you, in your journaling, when you say, I found the stepping stones, like, what were the thoughts and beliefs?
Yeah, I think a lot of my journey was reclaiming my life because I married my high school sweetheart. I have always been a perfectionist, but also being the oldest sister of a brother with special needs, I was conditioned not by my parents, but just as a survival skill to de-escalate. If you don't get in trouble, it will be fine.
Right.
Get perfect grades, be perfect. I definitely have what I call perfect girl syndrome. So with that and my like big dreaming creativity, I'm like, I'm going to have this big life, this perfect family. Like, I'm going to marry this guy, and we are going to work so hard on a relationship, and we're going to be amazing and perfect and all the things. Yeah. So when that didn't happen, it was I had to start over and be like, okay, well, takes 2.
Right.
Like, that didn't work out. That's not what I actually thought it was. I had more information, and with that, more like the additional information, I was able to make changes. And I think it was a really hard lesson to learn. And honestly, I'm still learning it.
Right.
Like,
oh yeah. We all are.
I keep thinking like, oh, I haven't mastered. And then something happens and I'm like,
right.
I don't know what's what's going on? I thought I was better. But
That's
no,
right.
I'm still a perfectionist in recovery.
Yeah.
But being given this new information, being like, okay, I thought this, and I'm giving myself permission to change my mind. And I'm giving myself permission to dream a new dream and evolve.
Yeah.
Because I had this dream of this family I was going to have and this life I was going to have. And then it was literally gone in one conversation. And so what do you do with that?
Right.
You know, so a lot of my experience was reclaiming my life for me, because I'm the literal only person who is going to show up for me. Like, I am the only person that in that moment, of course. Like, I had my family, I had a really amazing support system.
Yeah.
But, like, it's me.
Yeah.
No one can get you out of bed. No one can, like, chase the dreams. No one can dream a new dream for you. Like, you have to figure it out. And I know that everyone's divorce and just grief situation is so different. This is my personal, you know, experience. Like, if, you know, you have this tragic loss, like, my parents or my mom lost her parents, you've lost your parents. Like, you can't reclaim part of that, because that loss, you just can't reclaim it.
Right.
Like, it's your mom, you know?
Yep.
So there's different ways to reclaim for certain types of grief. But for me, it was like, all right, girl, we're getting a new dream. You know?
And I'm sure there were moments that were hard to get out of bed, right?
Oh, yes. That was, I made 3 non-negotiables for myself, and it was to get out of bed and brush my teeth, drink water, and do my very best at my job.
Wow.
And that, if I did that, I felt so good.
Oh, good. That's good.
Like,
That's a good.
But, because if not, I'm just like, I suck, and I'm also sad, and I, you know, like, it was that, the purpose of, like, you have to show up for yourself. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah.
And in that season, that's what it looked like.
That's what it looked like.
As more time went on, I was able to add, like, you have to move your body every day, whether that's going on a walk or going to Pilates or something like that, or you have to, like, have this much protein. And sometimes that was just, like, 2 protein shakes a day.
Yeah,
like, that's literally all I could do.
Is all I could do. I loved in the library, we have this couple that we're talking about health and stuff, and I love the way they talked about it, because they just talked about how your heart is a pump to pump the toxins out of your blood. Your lungs are the pump that pumps the toxins out of your breath, out of your air. And they said, but your muscles are the pump. And so it just I love the way you said the word movement. I have to move my body, because that's the whole thing. Like, it's about moving your body, because when you move those muscles, you're actually contracting the toxins out of your body that way, you know, that's in your muscles and in your cells, you know.
Well, and I had never had a goal like that, because of that kind of trauma from the birth control so young. It was always like 6-pack size, certain size of jeans. It was never, I literally cannot function, but I do feel better when I do this.
Yeah.
And from there, I was able to figure out workouts that I really loved. It really made me feel good. And then I was excited to do it. So I think whether it's a survival skill that you're trying to implement, like a healthy coping mechanism, or a goal that you want, it doesn't have to be like, I'm going to bench 400 pounds today. Like, that's not the journey.
Yeah.
You know, the journey is, I'm going to get to the gym today. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to walk and figure out what feels good. Like, it should feel good.
Yeah. How did you get from that space of it being about your looks or how you showed up in the world, how you're supposed to show up in the world, to like listening to yourself, listening to your body, and respecting what your body
I think
needed?
At the very beginning, it was just, I want to feel better, because I was so sad.
Yeah.
So I just felt broken, and like everything made me cry.
Yes.
Like, I was living in a small town that I grew up in with my ex-husband. It was just every corner, everything
High
was
school
like
sweethearts.
a reminder of a literal broken dream.
Yeah.
Even watching, like, I remember Thanksgiving, the year I got divorced, we were playing home videos, and my parents have this, like, beautiful slideshow to, like, these just iconic 90s songs that I have always loved. And looking at that video, I was like, I have all of these photos. Like, I have the graduation with the husband, I have the marriage, I have the missions, and I was like, and that's literally gone. It's irrelevant. So it was, I just felt everything was so sad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so at first it was just survival. Like, I just want to feel better.
Right.
And I found barre, loved it, got certified, and that was a part of reclaiming my life.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
So I actually discovered it during the pandemic.
Okay.
Because everything closed down.
Right.
Gyms closed. I'm like, okay, I've walked around the cemetery every day for like a month. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
So I just like Googled like workouts, and I found this pop sugar barre class, and it was so fun and hard. I just loved it.
Awesome.
So I was doing that, and I was like, I think I should get certified in this. And my ex was like, I don't think you should. Like, there was some, like, I don't know, for whatever reason. I don't think he believed that I couldn't do it or something. But there was just like, don't do that.
Right.
So I was like, okay, like, yeah, dumb.
Yeah.
But I loved it, and it was so fun. So I kept doing it. And then after my divorce, I would do the daily movement, and I was like, I'm going to freaking do this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to go get certified. So that was a reclaiming moment, is just going to the certification, like, I'm going to do this for me because I want to, and it's fun, and it's good for me, and I'm talented, and I can help other people. So I got certified, and I hosted, like, weekly classes here in Salt Lake, and it was so fun. I built a community. I was able to help people.
Yeah.
It gave me, like, new purpose.
Yes.
So I don't teach as many classes. I do events, like, here and there. Because when I moved to St. George, I just kind of, like, lost a little bit of community.
Yeah.
But that, I'm so grateful I did that, and that was part of my, like, reclaiming journey. And it gave me confidence, too. Yeah. I had no confidence. Right. Literally, I just felt so rejected that was, like, an act of self-love.
Can you think of some of those thoughts that would pass through your mind, those negative thoughts? Like, what did they sound like?
Yeah, I remember one that is super just, like, in my memory forever of I had moved to St. George, and part of that was just I could not live in my hometown anymore. I had so much social anxiety, and just like I said, every turn of the corner was like, you know, life's over. Right. So I had to move, and I really, from the pandemic and being outside every day, I knew that felt really good to me. And so I moved to St. George, and I was working one day at home, and I just looked up. It was like about 5 o'clock. So about the time that one would be done with work and one spouse would come home. And I just looked up at my door and started bawling because I was like, no one is ever going to come through those doors and, like, be there for me. I'm going to be alone forever. I'm never going to find someone, because either, you know, it was like the extremes. Yeah. I'm like, either I'm going to settle for someone who sucks, or I'm not good enough for the good people. Right. You know? And I just remember feeling so sad in that moment. And that was a total lie going on in my head. Right. Like,
the never, ever, forever. Those are always good trigger words. But that's how it feels.
23-year-old who is never going to find love. But it felt so true.
Yes, it does.
Like,
it does.
So hard, because you don't know how you're going to, you know how you're going to get to the next moment, or the next day, or the next week. Maybe you have a trip you're looking forward to in a month, but it's so hard to see through that. Like, that's where that patience with yourself in grief comes, and those moments that are hard that you overcome, that's where you build your resilience.
Yeah, and I think it's important because to talk about, because that's the thing is, you know, and the training I've done, like, that is the trauma. Like, maybe it's not the traumatic moment, but the trauma is the nervous system engaged. And when the nervous system's engaged, you're not making a decision to not feel good. You know, it's engaged. And so then we have to first acknowledge that there's something we have to, you know, because what's easy to do is just shut that down and numb out.
Oh, yeah.
Or hype ourselves up, whatever it is, to distract us from that uncomfortable nervous system. And which is exactly when you talked about, even with your brother, I mean, that was what was going on. When he was having a hard time with special needs, then everybody's nervous system is engaged.
Spiked.
And you're so sweet. You look around and you're like, I'm going to calm it. This is how I'm going to calm it down.
Yeah, like, let's go take the kids to play. Let's be invisible. Let's, like, figure out how to make it better.
Right. And so, I mean, that was such a sweet gift that you did, and how amazing that you could tune into that's happening, you know, because to be honest, some people would be like, that's them and I'm gone. But you decided to move into the relationship and want to help for good or bad, you know what I mean? Like, it was just what happened.
Well, and to go back to your question of, like, how did all of this, like, spark, and how did you figure this out? Honestly, like, everyone has really hard traumatic events in their life, but the divorce for me was that, like, breaking point where I couldn't shove the emotions down any farther, because I could have, like, been more mindful as a teenager or during my mission, you know, when that whole thing went down. I could have implemented these skills before, but I just didn't know. Right. I hadn't, like, experienced that. So I think it is hard. People are going to shove it down until they literally can't. Right. I think you're right. And that's when you're, like, broken open. I can't do this anymore. We got to change. Like, something's not working.
And that's where it becomes the wound and the gift. You know, like, you would never go back and say, oh, that was so fun. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. Never. Like, we're never. And that's why we have to move into paradox thinking, too, because it can both have been a good thing and the worst thing ever. Like, we have to let those things exist at the same time.
I know. The work that I'm currently doing with grief and having it be so generalized, I do have to say, when it is, like, a loss of a loved one, like a child or a parent, there is sometimes where it just sucks. Yeah. Like, it literally is the worst and it sucks. You can keep showing up for yourself or your kids or your family, but there are other things like the loss of a job or the loss of a relationship, whether it's a friendship or a breakup or divorce. You know, if, like, you're processing your childhood trauma or it changes, like, expectations change, it can, that's where it's the, like, the loss and the gift. You know?
And I think that's the thing about grief is, I think people always think of grief as, like, if someone has died, you know, but we grieve. That's why I like the word loss along with it, you know, like, because it's whatever that loss is, whatever was meaningful to you.
Yeah. I think it's an emotion that is never talked about.
Yeah, I think you're right.
We talk about being angry, but don't be angry because you need to be happy. We talk about sadness, but, like, dry your tears and be happy. Right. But grief is something, it's that, like, it's the void, it's the loss, you know? It's something that all of us experience, and I think being able to explore that is it's a service to yourself.
Yep. I think we quickly go into, but let me count my blessings, or let me be happy with myself. But we have to be in grief. And grief has grief isn't always about crying. Grief isn't always, you know, I mean, there's the stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, which I think after divorce, loneliness is a part of that. Yeah. And then acceptance, you know, and man, we want to shut it down. Specifically, like, I think the anger stage. I think that's an important.
I think for women especially. Because women are taught not to be angry.
Right. They can't be too sexual or angry. And then a man can only be sexual and angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we like split it up so much.
These amazing gender roles.
It's so ridiculous. Came up with. I know. Let's get rid of them.
So amazing.
But I think, I think anger is something that needs to be worked through and not shut down. And like you say, I think you're right. It's important to say, until I don't know if the stars align. I don't know if it's just that big wound, you know, or we just get to the top of our wound, like, pyramid, and it just it pushes us over and we start to, like, figure stuff out. Until then, maybe we just go along, you know, like, figure it out and go along. But how, you know, what was that anger stage like for you?
Honestly, it's so multifaceted because it did break me open so much. A lot. For probably 8 months, I was just sad. Like, so sad, so much loss, to the point where I got so hopeless, and I just was, like, I wouldn't act on a suicidal thought, but I was getting a lot of intrusive thoughts, and I just was like, like, someone hit me with a car. You know, like, I cannot do this anymore. And
I know
I'm gonna
that.
get emotional.
Yeah.
Because my mom, we talked before this episode. I just have to shout out Michelle because I love my mom. She's my ride or die. And Michelle is such an amazing friend to her. So, the best. But my mom is literal superwoman. We said that before we started. And I remember being in the shower one day, just sitting in the bathtub, letting the water go, trying to like think new thoughts and find a happier place. And my mom called me and she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." And those thoughts are just so sad.
Yeah.
So that weekend, she had a therapist that she had gone to a retreat with that she thought would be a good fit for me. And so I went to this therapist and I was like, "Hi, this is my sob story. All the things, help me get over it. I'm so sick of feeling like this. I am done. Like, let's get it together."
Yeah, right? Fix me.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, let's get over him, you know? I'm done.
Yes.
And she was like, "I'm so sorry that happened to you, but what we need to figure out is why you made the choices, why you chose to marry him, why you chose to marry someone that didn't love you." And I was like, this is my fault. Like, what?
What else?
I was lied to. Like, no.
Yeah.
And I just was like, oh, you know? And so from that appointment, we started kind of exploring my programming, why I didn't see his patterns, what patterns are in me, the patterns in my family, in my immediate and extended family, because I'm very close to my extended family on both sides. So I have like lots of moms and dads with lots of opinions and expectations of me. So that's where the anger came up, it was anger from the divorce, but also starting to work through that childhood trauma. And I did feel betrayal in my marriage, but not from like infidelity or anything that someone typically would. So I wasn't angry about that.
Right.
So it's, again, everyone has a different experience.
Right.
So I think people are like, how could you not? You know, like, of course there were moments of anger, but for me it was a little bit different. But that's where I felt the anger, is like unprogramming things and figuring out those patterns.
Right. Right. I think that makes total sense, right? Because it's like, oh, I didn't have a chance.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit. I didn't even have a chance to figure out for myself.
Of course I made these choices.
Right.
Of course I did, you know? And that's where I think you have to give yourself so much grace.
Yeah.
I never felt like, I think it helps that I didn't have kids, that I wasn't like, why did I put myself in this situation? Like, not that anyone who has kids should feel that, but those are just lies that you tell yourself sometimes.
Yes.
So I think it did help that I wasn't like, that was the biggest mistake, and, you know, all the things. And
that's the thing, is everybody's got their own journey. Everybody has their own experiences, and that's why I think sharing this story can be beneficial. But if we get lost in the story, then we lose some connectability and relatability for people, because like you say, like someone that was divorced with kids, you're not trying to give them the answer.
Yeah, no.
You know, you're not trying to tell them how to do it.
You need to have patience with yourself because of all these things you learn, but these experiences give you like patience and empathy for other people.
Right.
Because I remember at the beginning of my divorce feeling so sad, and I had 2 friends that were getting divorced. They're older than me and they have kids. And I was bawling for them.
Right.
I was like, I do not know how they are doing this with kids. Like, they're not in their homes anymore, and they don't see their kids every day, and they're like, I was sad that I was gonna wake up alone on Christmas at my mom's house, and they literally weren't gonna wake up with their kids, and I was bawling for them.
Wow.
It gives you so much empathy. So I think remembering these experiences for others to have empathy, but then also empathy for yourself, because I had a experience this summer that was really hard. And I told my mom, I was like, I think some part of me thought that I had earned my hard badge.
Right.
Like, I think mentally, I was like, I'd never have to do a hard thing again. Like, I have it figured out. And I was like, what? And it took me like 6 months to get over this, like, loss.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not that old. Like, I'm going to have to do this for like 70 more years.
I know, right? Those days, some of those days, it just feels that it crushes you a little.
I think I had this pride, like, I'm 25 and I've done all this hard stuff and I've got it. And then I'm like, wait, life's really long.
Yeah.
Like, but just remembering, like, healing isn't linear. We're here to learn and to support others. So, like, give others grace and give yourself grace.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. How did you find meaning? What was finding meaning like? Because there was, I'm sure that was a piece of, I mean, I'm just imagining, you know, that's a spiritual body kind of thing. It's like, there's meaning. We got to find meaning in what? Or, you know, maybe some people find meaning in making it, you know, it did support your ability to have empathy and all that stuff. And I think that's so great, but also the meaning, just, you know, how did you have to change to find meaning? Because all those things, the programming told you how to find meaning, right?
For me, it's really hard to find meaning in an experience because they're painful. Like, I remember after high school, like, not making the dance team in college, and all of my aunts were like, well, you were supposed to go on a mission, that's why. Oh, right. And I was like, no, I just didn't make it, and that sucked. Yeah. Or people coming home from a mission, or me coming home from my mission and then sharing my experience, because I've always been like an oversharer. Like, me too. I don't care. Here's my trauma. Yes. I hope you get something from it. If you don't, unfollow me. But people would be like, this is why you came home early, so you could help everyone else that came home early. Yes. And I'm like, no. Right. Like, it sucked, and I wish it would have been different. Right. My marriage, like, I wish I would have either made a different choice or our relationship would have been different. Right. But because the divorce experience was so hard. Like, I'm so glad I have the information I have now and am now where I'm at. Right. With a whole different life and in a different relationship. But that was hard, you know? So I don't think it's, for me, it's not finding meaning in the experience. Like, I think you're right. God gave this to me, and this is my cross to bear. Right. Just for me, it doesn't serve me. No. But find purpose and meaning in my life. Exactly. That's what helps me. Yeah. I think, because to me, that's bypassing. Because it's like, oh, when you're, you know, it's like, don't be sad because this meaning's here. And it's like, that's just going to bubble up somewhere else. Yeah, and I think we are trained to do that. We are trained to do that. Like, you have to be okay, so figure it out. Right. Like, well, this is why. And sometimes we can get real toxic with it and be like, well, this happened to me because I'm not good enough. Yes. Because I'm a bad person. Because I made a mistake. Yep. And, like, God or the universe hates me. Yeah. This karma. Was my lesson to learn. Yes. You know? So bad. Like, either we make a mistake and we learn from it, or just bad things happen sometimes. Right. And we can come back. We can be resilient and keep showing up. Yep. I think you're right. I struggle sometimes because a lot of times in this metaphysical world, I do believe we create our lives. I do. Yes. But at the same time, I get so stuck on this. I have like a vibrational ladder on my phone and I'm like, okay, wait, am I like not happy enough? Like, why did this bad thing happen? It's hard. So this is how I've had to figure it out for myself, because I think, I definitely think we create our lives. But I think other people do too. And because we're in relationship with them. Totally. Then we're going to have some interaction. We're going to have some, you know, so it was almost like, so it's like, Thank you for teaching me this just now. Right? Because it's like, I'm like, if I'm going to, I speak it this way, it's kind of funny, but it's like, okay, if I'm like making a cake and then I'm like, okay, we're going to have people have their own choices and their own ways of being. And so it's only like 1 teaspoon of poop, but we're just going to throw that in the cake. It's like, then that teaspoon of choice and agency and all that stuff is just part of the cake. Well, and that ruins your expectation of your perfect cake. Exactly. So you can't, you've got to just, I could change my mind in 5 minutes because it's always this thing, but it's like, but I believe we create our lives, but I also think when we create them, we also put these obstacles in our way to help us grow, not to make them better, but I see so many people that they just keep taking responsibility for everything. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, you're beating yourself up trying to over responsibility for something that other person did. Totally. And I think this happened to me because of that whole therapy situation where I learned about accountability, I was like, oh, so everything's on me. Like, now that I know that piece and I can take accountability for that, now it will be perfect. And I was like, oh, shoot, this bad thing happened because I was low vibes.
Right.
And
totally.
I'm going to go meditate and go to hot yoga and then everything will be fixed. Right. And it's like, it just doesn't happen like that.
It's not always that way. Other people, especially in relationships, you can live in your own little world that way.
Or like jobs or, you know, like your family dynamics.
Yep.
When anytime there's another person involved, that can totally happen.
Right. And so, again, we can move into using our tools and all that stuff to work within that thing, which is different than controlling what they are doing.
Totally.
But we cannot earn, I think we try and earn or deserve this great life, and that's not creating.
Yeah.
That's like, I got every finger and toe crossed. Please help me have an abundant life.
Yeah, that's like desperate energy.
Yes. That's not the same thing. So and I think allowing what comes, and like some days are going to be hard. And that hard day doesn't mean that you have ruined your life and you aren't, you know what I mean?
Streak's over and you're back to ground one.
I love in the 4 Agreements. Did you ever?
Love that book.
Did you read the 5th Agreement?
No. It's on my list.
You have to read
and
the 5th.
I have another one I have this like little tray of books that I grab when I finish the next one. There's another one. I think it's the maybe accountability one.
Okay. Of that writer.
He's the best.
It's so good. If my Audible, I looked at it the other day, there's this thing and you can say how much time you've listened, and mine's like almost 4 months worth of listening time, 4 straight months of listening time on my Audible. So yeah,
that's amazing.
But I love how always do your best, and your best is your best.
Yeah. Well, that was part of my thing. Yeah. Those non-negotiables that I set. Yep. Like, I'm going to do my very best at work today. Yeah. You know, and maybe my employer wasn't thrilled, but I'm like, this is literally my best.
And so so this is something that I think people need help with, because how did you give yourself permission to have 50% be your best and be okay with it?
I think I just was proud of myself for getting out of bed.
And how did you find that pride?
Because I could have stayed in bed all day. And I did have the luxury of, I moved out of my house and into my mom's. I did have them as support, you know, so let's say if I didn't show up for work, if I didn't get out of bed and I lost my job, I would have been fine. But again, my experience was about reclaiming my life. Right. And I love my family, but I did not want to live there. Yeah. I had just...
You're an adult.
I had been living this married life. So... I think that's what it was. So
did you have to speak to yourself and say good job, you know, or did you just feel it inside, or how did you allow that to be? Because coming from a perfectionist, so now you're going into like 50%.
This is a good question, because now I'm back at I have a hard time falling asleep at night if I'm not productive enough. You know, so
it's a journey.
It is. I think it's just you take it day by day and you keep. It's annoying. You have to keep relearning the same lessons. Yeah. But on the flip side of that, it's like an evolved lesson. You're not at ground zero, you know? Yep. So I think it was just, I knew that was like the most I could give. Yeah. And then every night I'd go in my bed and I'd journal, and it was a feeling, and I know that sometimes isn't the best answer, but it was just a feeling I had.
But I think, you know, listening to you say that, I think that's what a gift you have is. What you can do now is you can be the witness for someone else. Like, you knew how to be your own witness. Some people don't. Yeah. But what you're doing now is you're saying, I will witness that you did your best. And sometimes you need someone else to just tell you.
Totally.
Totally.
And I have been on both sides where I knew that I was doing my best. I knew that divorce was for me in my situation. That was like a sure from myself and God. Like, I am one with God. I believe that. That was, I knew. But there's been other choices where I'm searching for validation from everyone. When it's, I know that this is the choice for me, but whether it's fear or, breaking patterns that are so hard to break.
Yeah.
That I'm like, wait, is this really the right thing? Like, I don't know what,
Yeah.
So it goes back and forth. And again, like, no one has it figured out. No one's perfect.
Right.
We're all on the grind.
We are. You use the word brave a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What's being brave? What is that like? What do you define that as?
That showing up for your life when it's hard is really brave. That divorce is super brave. Whether you're the one asking for the divorce or the one who's feeling rejected and left, restarting anytime you start over, even in like a new job or something, like pat yourself on the back for the courage of showing up every day.
Yeah.
Because you could stay in the cycle that you feel like you've outgrown. You could stay there, but there's all of this unknown, and it's so brave to step into the unknown and to step out of that really familiar cycle that feels so safe but uncomfortable because you know it's not for you anymore.
Yeah.
And because it was for you at one point doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
But it's really brave to leave that.
Yeah.
And to grow and start over.
I'm smiling and laughing because I want you to tell the story of your boots.
My boots?
Because I love that story. I mean,
The sparkle boots?
Yes. When I see those, I'm like, that girl, those are momentous moments, right?
Yes.
Tell me the boots.
So I literally have one friend. No, I have lots of friends, but like my childhood friend,
Yeah.
yes. It was her birthday, and I was in town, and so I went to Dillard's to like get her a birthday present, and I'm walking in, and I see these neat, like over the knee, rhinestone studded cowgirl boots.
Yeah.
And I just literally stood there and looked at them, and I was like,
I'm surprised they didn't have Alexis like beaded into them.
I needed them. I literally stood there forever, and then I was like, I do not need these. Like, where the heck am I gonna wear these? I live in St. George. I have no friends. I don't have a date to anything. Where am I gonna wear these? So I buy the gift, I go get it wrapped, and as I'm walking out, one of the girls at the cosmetic counters was like, I love your pants. It had this big butterfly on the bum of my jeans.
Yeah.
And a butterfly is one of my hope symbols. So I had the butterfly jeans on, and she's like, I love your jeans, and I saw you staring at those boots, and I really think you could pull them off.
Wow.
And I was like, thank you so much. They're so amazing. I left. I drove home to St. George, and for a week I was like, I need them.
Wow.
So I bought them, and I was like, I don't know how, but
Yeah.
I feel like if I wear these 4 times, they'll pay for themselves. I feel like it's worth it.
Yeah.
And I need to put myself out there. Like, I'm going to wear these boots and reclaim, like,
Yeah.
these are me, and I want to wear them, and it feels fun.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's hard for things to feel fun when you're either sad or lonely, just going through
Right.
it. So with my coworker, we went to Vegas. We're like these 2 Mormon girls that don't know how to do Vegas. We're trying to figure out how to get into a club. I'm a dancer, so
Yeah.
I love dancing, but I don't know. I've never been to a club. Like, we're walking around Vegas. We got into the club. It was so much fun, but I wore the boots, and it was so amazing. The second time I wore the boots was Halloween, and I met my boyfriend. So that was kind of fun.
That is fun.
Not that the boots has anything to do with the boyfriend, but it was me showing up and putting myself out there.
Yeah.
And I had this new experience. And also, healing inside of a relationship is wild.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different
Okay,
podcast, probably.
We'll go there for a minute, but yeah, and that was and you use the word again, like reclaim a lot too.
Yes.
And so what is that about?
I think just taking ownership of your life. Like you said, we don't always have control.
Yeah.
And it's not all, we're here to have a human experience with other
Yes.
humans.
Yes.
So it's not this perfect, sparkly thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there is some control and some accountability and ownership. It is your life.
Yeah.
And so, again, using that word brave or courageous, sometimes if you want to go to the restaurant that no one goes to, but it's calling to you, go. Like, even if you have to go by yourself, just go because you want to. If you want to wear the dress that everyone's going to look at you, like, go to therapy, figure out how to wear the dress, like, work through your own blocks.
Yeah.
and wear the dress.
Yes.
You know, like, this is your life. Wear the freaking boots.
Yeah.
Buy the boots, you know?
How do you know what is your truth? How do you know in that situation, and you're weighing it out, how do you know this is my authentic self making this decision?
I think if you can't stop thinking about it, and this happened with the boots, and this also happened with a very serious other situation where I made the initial choice and then I thought about it for like I could not get out of my head. I was so unsettled, so anxious. I'm like, no, this is for me. Everyone says this isn't for me, and actually this is. Like, I was right.
Yeah.
So you change your mind, you know, and if like if it's maybe a friend or something that you've burned the bridge, again, that's the human experience. So now you've learned, like, claim, listen to yourself. But like, that's kind of how I've learned. And sometimes there's hard consequences for that. But other times you get that information where you're like, now I know how this feels.
Yeah.
Because especially if you're in that comfortable cycle and you're going through the motions, you've never had to make a choice like that. Like, you don't know how to not go against.
Yep. That's the nicest thing. If there has to be a nice silver lining on anything that's hard, it's like when you've gone through those life-crushing moments, it's like, that's the thing, is it's like, it's not going to take me down. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, there's a little piece of you at least that knows this, it might not take me down. So just try it. Just like, you be brave.
Yeah.
And like, what's the consequences? It's not going to take me out. I might learn a lesson and grow. How about,
it's just going to be more information for you.
More information. That's a great way to put it.
And I think also being able to explore your feelings often.
Yes.
So that when you are in tough situations like that, you can be like, okay, what is this? Is this my intuition telling me no? Or is this fear?
Yes.
And then maybe, like...
Because they can feel the same.
They totally can.
But totally different purposes for you.
The same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to get clear on yourself about which one's which. You gotta feel into those sensations that let you know which one's which, because that's the difference between being brave and not.
Totally. So what helps me is journaling to kind of figure it out for myself, and then also therapy. Yeah. Because I have an amazing support system, but I don't need anyone else reacting out of fear to my fear.
Right.
So I like to keep it for those really hard things.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's always how I'm going to do it, but for right now, that's like how I do the pros and cons, figure out what I really want.
Yep.
But all of that being said, this is like the most aligned I've ever felt. The most myself.
Wow.
But there's also fear in there, you know, like...
Right.
Because you're always learning. There's always new things coming. But the person I am now versus pre-divorce, I like this version so much better. Yeah. You know?
And just to touch on that, it's like every emotion is like a color of the rainbow. You need all the colors. You don't want to get rid of fear because it does have a purpose. Yeah. But that's the work, is to just recognize when you said it perfectly, when this fear is saying stop, no, and when it's saying, girl, this is going to propel you. You know, like this is your moment.
Like, this is the block that's been here for a minute. Get rid of it.
Yes. Yes.
Well, and with your like colors of feelings, a tool that I just have to shout out is the feelings wheel. Yes. That has helped me so much. I learned about that in therapy, and I felt so dumb. Yeah. Because she's like, how are you feeling? You seem uneasy. Right. I'm like, I think I'm fine. And she's like, look at this chart. Yeah. I felt like I was in preschool looking at this feelings wheel. But I was like, oh my gosh, wait, I feel this and this and this. And me being able to read it. And it like, something clicked in me like, oh, yep, you feel that. Not that one. Yes, this one. So literally, I would sometimes, if in a conversation with someone, I'd be like, this is so weird. Not like a stranger, but a friend or my mom. I'd like be like, this is so weird, but I need to pull up this wheel really fast. Then I'd be like, okay, this is making me feel a little anxious, or like...
I totally do that too.
Exposed. I'm feeling rejected right now. Yeah. You know, because before I'm just like, I don't know, but this is uncomfortable and I don't know how I feel, so I'm fine.
Yes.
Like,
right.
Don't ask me. I won't address it.
Yep.
Everyone's fine.
Yep. That was the Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown. Her lesson.
I need to read that.
It's really good. You know, and that's the point. She's like,
my dad read that and loves it.
So good. It's like we do I think our therapist says, you know, mad, glad, and sad. It's the Dr. Seuss language. That's all we know. Mad, glad, or sad, you know? Yeah. And there's so much more depth to it. And we need all of these things, and we need a language form. That's what Brené Brown says. We need to be able to language what we're going through and be able to see what's happening in order to transform and move forward. Yeah. In the library, there's like one day, and who knows, I just was sitting there and I was like, let me look at this emotion wheel. But I want to kind of, because there's overlap, you know, like all of them put them in things.
Some are like 2 categories.
So I was like, you know, I want to just play with this for a minute. So I mean, it's not that big. I'll link to it. We'll have a download, but it's like, I just thought there's fear, anger, and sad. And it was just interesting how looking at some of them, it was like, there's a little bit of anger involved in this sadness, you know, like so then when I'm upset, I can say, okay, I feel this. And so I'm definitely sad, but what's that grief that's there? Yeah. Or what's that fear that's there? And again, looking at the grief, where's the loss? That's the question to ask. What do I feel like I'm losing or have lost? Or is out of my reach? Or where am I fearful? What do I fear will happen, or that I'm not enough? You know, like I love that the ego, you know, we always talk about the ego, but it's like, it's got 2 languages, you know, the negative ego, it's got, I'm not good enough and I'm better than, but we always talk about the better than, but the I'm not good enough is just the other side of that coin. Totally. And that kind of helps me to, you know, I tend to kind of maybe worry about that a little more, you know, like, who am I? You know, who am I to be doing this? That's my ego. That's the angry little person on the back shoulder.
Yeah. And the fear.
Yeah. Yeah. So Harville Hendrix wrote a book, and his wife wrote a book called Getting the Love You Want. And I've quoted this before, but it's like, he says, we are born, wounded, and healed in relationship.
Totally. Totally.
And so you're working through healing in relationship, you said.
Yeah. And again, it's there's the things that were not present in my other relationship that are very present in my relationship now, that I'm like, but what if, like, he's just trying hard right now? Like, this is going to change. Right. It's going to go away. You know, there's there's that fear piece. And then there's also the part that is mine, that is my childhood perfectionism, the lies I'm telling myself, like, oh, he doesn't love me, you know. So that's part childhood trauma and relationship trauma, right? So it's been really interesting for me to, I mean, everyone heals in relationships, like you either heal it or you know it doesn't work out, but being able to have those open conversations with him, like, you know, the lie in my head that I
the
hear,
story I'm telling myself
when you say that is, you don't like me, you know. Just, and being able to talk about that is so amazing. But I would have never prioritized those things if I didn't have the information from my previous relationship and divorce. Right. Well, you know? And your choice to work through it and look at it. Totally. And after I got divorced, I went on a few dates, and then I went on a date with this guy, and I was like, oh, he's cool. There's these things, but I mean, he's you know, it was just, I was like, don't settle. You just went through all of this work. Like, do not settle. But I was like, I'm never gonna find someone. He did feeling. Like, there was this healing where I was like, oh my gosh, wait, he thinks I'm cute? Like, he called me beautiful, you know, like there was that healing aspect, but I was like, okay, you got all this information. Are you going to use it? Yeah. You know? Well, you are amazing that you took the opportunity to learn and grow, so that, because especially women, we're taught to be like just what everybody needs. Totally. So it would be really easy to just be like, okay,
now I'm going to double down on that because I've had this loss here.
Yeah.
What feels like rejection. So I'm never doing that again. I'll be whatever you want.
Yes. Like, I need to look like what you want. I need to act like what you want. And yeah.
How did you push through that?
It was just, my divorce was so painful that I was like, no.
Yeah.
For me.
I'm never going to do this again.
Yeah. Like, I tried the dating app thing. That did not work for me. I think it's because of my age. Like, I am in my early 20s and I had been through this really hard thing and grown a lot. And I just was like, you know what? After a few dates and some really horrible experiences, I was like, someone in Barnes & Noble is going to think I'm cute and ask for my number.
Oh, wow.
Like, and I'm going to be lonely, I guess, but like, this is not working for me. I can't do this right now. Yeah. Maybe I would have like gone back, or I would have become more social and been in like Facebook groups for hikes or rock climbing or something. Like, I would have figured it out.
Yeah.
But just for that, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take this time to learn how to be comfortable with myself. And because I think there was in my marriage a little bit of codependency. Like, and that comes from my childhood trauma of wanting everyone to be okay.
Right.
Like, is mom okay? Is dad okay? Is Jackson okay?
Right.
So it was like, is husband okay?
Yes.
Is he not? What can I change? What's he doing wrong? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Like, let's always be together because that's what needs to happen and that needs to be fun. So learning, like, you know what? I'm just going to take this time to be comfortable with myself. And that was really hard. But it also showed to me, like, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, like, whatever happens, you have you.
Right.
And you're going to be okay.
So important. It's so easy, and I can still go back there, and like, it's right there. I could go back there in a half a heartbeat, where it's like thinking that this outside situation needs to be a certain way, and then I'll feel better.
Totally.
Like, that's so attractive. But there is a better way. There is a different way. We can go in and do that work so that our nervous system reacts a different way, so that our beliefs, thoughts, emotions, connections, our physical sensations are now different. We can reprogram those. And it kind of feels like you're jumping off a cliff.
Totally. And I think the longer that I went, the more comfortable I got with being with myself. And then I'm like, this guy has to be pretty freaking awesome to take my time.
Aww.
You know?
Yes.
And my boyfriend now has that same energy. Like,
good.
we were both like, we're not dating at all.
Yeah.
And I think everyone says, like, that's when it happens. And I'm like, whatever. Don't talk to me. I'm alone and sad. Like, I'm going on a Red Rock hike. Don't talk to me. But, like, I think just that's where the creation comes in and the attracting, you know? Like, I just tried to remember, like, don't chase, attract. Like, live your life the way you want, just with what you can control. And, like, great things are coming. And then a hard thing happens, and so you start all over, and that's the growth.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna talk about some classes on that, because that would be a great class. That'd be a great class. I'd love it.
I need to take the class. We're learning stuff.
Well, I know, but that's the thing. You're only, a good teacher is only 2 or 3 steps ahead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have not figured out. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
That's why I love that, back talk about Brene Brown. I mean, if you listen to her, she's right there on her own journey too. And so I love her for that, because she'll tell her story right alongside. She's got her Diana, her therapist, that she talks about. I think in this last episode of her podcast, she talked. I didn't realize, she's still seeing that, Diana. Good, then I feel right at home. Like, we're good. Then I even like you more, Brene.
I know. The other one I love is Glennon Doyle.
Yes.
Because that book really helped me, Untamed.
Oh, really?
Okay. Now I'm remembering
need to read that.
That helped me claim parts. It was very vulnerable and validated a lot of the things I was feeling that no one helped me validate, because no one in my life had been through these things. And I was like bawling at the pool reading this, like, oh my gosh, yes. So that was a very good, like, reclaiming book for me.
Do you listen to her podcast?
I do. Yeah.
What I love, that I remember listening to that podcast, and just the way these women are like, yes, and they just are like, I get you, and they're willing to be flawed in front of people. I'm like, these are my people.
I know. She's like, last week I had a mental breakdown. I was like, same. Like, I did too.
And it's wild because I've literally I was talking to a group about, and I said my therapist, and I mean, I have a therapist and I have like energy workers. I have a chiropractor. You know what I mean? Like I get it done.
You have a full team.
I just saw an astrologer last week. Like I loved my start. I got my star chart done.
I got a color therapy painting.
Oh,
Spirit painter.
Love it.
Like we have all the things.
Yeah.
We need all the tools.
Those are the tools. Like sometimes I just have to do what I need to do to keep me moving forward. Right.
Totally.
And so I was just talking in this group about it and I just said, I think I just said my therapist, and someone came up to me and she said, and it was a friend, she's like, you don't need to say that. You don't have to share that. And I was like,
don't you want to hear?
I know. I was like, wait, what? Like, and it was the first time it was like, it wasn't, it was like, oh, different generations have different expectations or thoughts about therapy or about transforming yourself. Like it was like as if I had just confessed the worst thing in the world, and so it's like sometimes when I talk about it, I can feel that maybe that's a moment I need to work on, because I can feel that, like, I don't know what it is. I have to look at the emotion, but it's like, am I the only one that thinks that? Like I am not worried about telling people that I go to therapy.
Yeah.
Or that we, that's like, it's like to me, it's like having a personal trainer for my brain.
Totally.
Why wouldn't I?
I know there is a big stigma about it.
Yeah. But it's
I
like,
think it is getting way better.
Yeah. I think it's getting way better. Your generation.
I think millennials have like shattered the vulnerability.
Yep.
They are talking about what's happening, especially women, like talking about the really hard things of like pregnancy and childbirth and infertility and then also like marriages and relationships. Yep. And I think that's trickled down to Gen Z too, where they're like, not doing that. Yep. Like, hallelujah. Not for me.
We're not passing this on anymore.
No way.
We are moving on. We're going to do something about this. We've got that fire in the belly that's going to say, this isn't going to take me down. Here's who I am. Here's what I need. Here's where I'm going. I love that your generation isn't afraid to, for all that they say about, you've got this social media and stuff, but you guys say, this is who I am, and you own it and you put it out there. We kind of stepped in and like, what do you need me to be?
Totally.
And then that's how we showed up. That's not healthy.
Yeah.
That is not healthy. You speak more of my language.
I even see it in my like 16-year-old sister.
Oh yeah.
Like, she's like, no, I'm not doing that.
No.
And we were like raised by the same parents, like same home, same culture.
Yep.
But like that is also my parent. Like I was raised by different parents than my mom, than my sister. Yeah. Because of the way my parents have evolved.
Yep.
And
for sure.
But like kudos to anyone in Gen X, or because even my grandparents, like who are boomers, the work they've done. Good. Like, so just shout out to anyone who has a lot of years of conditioning and patterns that is putting in the effort to break them. Yep. Because it's really, at that point, is it easier to just live in the cycle? Right. Like, not as fulfilling, I don't think, but maybe easier. True. So that's something to be proud of.
Totally. That's a good point. Good point. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. When you transform yourself, I swear you transform a tribe. Like,
absolutely. Well, and I'm like, I don't want to teach this to my daughter. These like probably generational, like systemic, like women things. Yeah. I'm like, I don't want her to feel like that. Yep. And I'm sure that will be a whole new breaking open when I have kids, because that's just a whole new experience.
It's so funny. I literally have this memory of your mom saying that, like, she's like, I am not passing this on.
My mom lived in so much trauma, and I'm so proud of her. Yes. Like, she has done a lot of work. Yes. So has my dad. Yeah. Like, they had very different childhoods, but like,
Yep.
so proud of anyone who does that work.
Yep, totally. And part of your work was your journal. So let's talk about your
Yes.
journal. This is so exciting.
So my cousin, again, like I said, had such supportive family during my divorce. And my cousin just one day just dropped off a journal on my porch. And she was like, sometimes, she worked at a hospital, and she's like, sometimes people at the hospital buy this when their family members die, and I thought that maybe this would help you.
Yeah.
And I opened it that day and started writing, and for the first time ever, I wrote unfiltered. Because before that, it had been like either the scrapbook vibe where it's like,
Right.
this is my trip, or it had been like, this is genealogy. This is family history work, and my great-great-granddaughter is going to read this. Plus the perfectionism skew. And I am perfect girl. I'm the perfect grandma, the perfect mom. And this is how I lived my life. This is the story of me.
Yeah.
So that was the first time in that journal that I was like, I am so sad. I am so mad. This happened, and how, all the things. None of it made sense. It was not a perfect story. Any thought that came to my head, I wrote it down, and I felt better.
Oh, wow.
So I turned the page, and I wrote another one. And then I turned the page, and I wrote another one. And then I skipped a few pages, and I was like, ooh, I kind of liked this prompt. So I wrote that one. And then I went to bed. Like, so much. I just felt so much better.
Like a breath, like you finally were able to take a breath.
And so that became one of my coping tools. Because when we're really stressed or overwhelmed or in grief or trauma, we have to cope.
Yep.
And sometimes we can turn to unhealthy things.
Yep.
Mine is food. I'm an emotional eater for sure. Not that I was journaling to not eat food.
Right.
It just fell into my hands.
Right.
And now, hindsight, I can see, like, when we're overwhelmed, let's not... And I'll eat healthy things. I'll, like, binge healthy things.
Right.
But anyway, that's a different topic. But so I went on a beach trip. And that was part of, like, reclaiming. I was making new memories because I'm young and I have a full life ahead of me. And I'm making new memories. And every day I went on the beach and I bawled and I wrote in the journal on the sand. It was like a cover journal that didn't have a spiral, and that bugged me so bad. So this journal has a double ring spiral. It has a really thick, pretty cover. So it's pretty to look at. It's full color printed. It's happy inside because the work that you do in here is so dark and heavy and deep that when you open it, it should be like a little bit of sunshine.
Yeah.
Today is a new day. You're showing up. Good for you.
Yes.
So each prompt is different. There's affirmation pages in here that are just like happy quotes to remind you to just have hope.
Yeah.
And then there's also therapy tools in here. So there's a page that's kind of like the emotions, where it's just a list of emotions and you can highlight or circle which ones you feel. There's like mental health check-ins that you can kind of rate where you're feeling for the day. I am 1 to 10, and then today I need, and you get to write down what you need by, again, tapping into that like subconscious mind and figuring out for yourself what you need, because no one knows better than you.
Right.
But sometimes it is hard to feel that way.
Right.
To pull it out of yourself.
That little filter's there that says, well, what am I supposed to be? Instead of being real with what really, really is.
Yeah, and these hard things are so overwhelming that a prompted journal where you can just open it. Healing is not linear.
Right.
And it's so personal that you don't have to go in order.
Right.
Just find a prompt that you're like, ooh, that feels, I have something to say about that.
Yep.
And then you can just go.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have the capacity for one more thing
Right.
to think about. And I even put some list prompts in here that are just straight up, it's a prompt and then a numbered list.
Yeah.
So that you can just like jot down ideas, and that helps get ideas flowing.
I love it.
Thank you.
And
so I'm super excited about it.
So exciting. Yeah. And it's your thing, your journal, your full circle. Back
I know,
to your...
it's funny. Like, all of my friends are having babies, and I'm like, I launched a journal. Like, here's it's literally my baby.
Yes.
I'm like, hi.
It's coming. It's there.
Which is also fun too. Like, it's an example that my journey is unique. It is mine.
Yes.
You know, like, it's not what I thought it would be. You know, in my grand plan, I was supposed to get pregnant this year.
Oh.
You know, so
you had that much plan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know, and that's kind of like something that you talk about in a marriage.
Right.
Like, let's do this and live our life and go to Europe and then we'll have babies, you know?
Okay.
So it's like,
yeah,
you know, things are different and that's okay. Like, look at this cool thing that would have never happened. And I'm not like, my divorce happened so that this journal could happen back to that thing. But like, I'm proud of this. And look at who I am now and this creation, my little journal baby.
Your baby. I know. Isn't that interesting though?
I'm
too,
like, everyone's posting baby announcement photos and I'm like, here's my photo shoot for my book.
But I mean, that's the creation, is you created that this is your baby. Do you know what I mean? Like, you allowed that to be the accumulation of what that piece of you felt like should happen. You're still honoring that plan. It just shows up differently. And so then you step into the plan and then you create it because you're participating, you're working with it, you're molding it yourself instead of just like, this is, you know, sometimes that's the thing, is we think manifesting or having abundance is just nothingness, which is like, that's actually hell. Like,
yeah,
nothingness, or just
that's just a straight void.
Right. He's like, I would tell my kids that. I'm like, you know, I said, if I told you I'm going to give you a new present every day, it wouldn't take very long before it means nothing.
Yeah, you're over it.
Right.
Like by day 5.
Right.
Maybe sooner.
Right. So like the work, that as much as it's painful, that's the growth. That's what makes things meaningful.
And the resistance is the contrast to that joy.
Yes.
Like, you know,
it's the catapult for it.
I was so scared. There was so much fear and anxiety, and it still creeps in, you know? Yeah. So business is a spiritual pursuit. If you want to expand your spirituality, maybe do business. I don't know, but it has been wild.
I love it. I can't wait. We'll put a link for sure for people can get through the grief. And you're going to have other ones come out? You're going to try?
Yes.
Oh, good.
There's in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can get the Growing Through Grief journal, and then there's also a tote that has
that's right.
Not Growing Through Grief. There's the Growing Through Grief journal, and then a tote that says "You're doing great, sweetie." And that was like a guy, a Maverick worker. There's like a story.
It's like your mantra?
Kind of. Yeah. It's like my hope quote. The day that I found out my divorce was finalized, I was so sad. I went on this cry drive. Yeah. And I came back and I stopped at a Maverick on a gas station to get a drink. And the worker was so cute. And he's like, "How's your day going?" And I said, "It's fine." And he's like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I got divorced today. Like, it's final." And he said, "That's fine. You've always been there for you. So keep showing up for yourself. You're doing great, sweetie." Aww. And I was like, "Thanks." He's like, "Your drink's on me." Aww. And so I was like, I sat in the car and I'm like, I am doing great. Yeah. Like, we're all doing so great. Yes. So there's the tote with that affirmation, "You're doing great, sweetie." Yeah. And then the Growing Through Grief journal that is for anyone. And also it makes a great sympathy gift. Yes. Like, because that's just so hard. Yeah. Like,
for all kinds of loss.
All kinds.
And I would love for people to give it as a gift for even the simplest losses. Yes. Just to honor that I see that you're lost. I have my sister texted last night. Was it last night? She's like, "I had to take my dog to the, and they're going to put her down, you know?" Yeah. And it's like, that's a loss. Totally. And I could feel for her, you know, and seeing her posts about it. It's like, this is important to her. Mm-hmm. And so I would love for people to give it as a gift for those kinds of loss, even if it's something you wouldn't think would be like
and there's
loss
always
is loss.
Things you can do. There's like, you could send someone like a $5 Venmo, like, "Get yourself a drink today. I know it's been a hard day," or a box of cookies, you know. But I love this as a gift because it's functional. Yes, it's like,
it's therapy in a book.
Yes, and it's less than a copay. You know,
that's right. It's so true.
So
that's so true.
You can get the journal by itself or the bundle, which is 30% off. And then I have a code.
Oh, good.
That is Wholeness 10 for 10% off.
Oh, awesome.
So
love it. We'll put that in the notes. Yeah. We'll throw that in the notes. Well, what we always ask our people. So from all your work that you've done and all of the letting go, all of the reclaiming that you've had to do, how would you describe wholeness?
I think wholeness would be honoring your highest self. Mm-hmm. That if, wholeness is, I think, the goal. But for me, that's like getting into that perfection territory.
Right.
Whole, perfect. And so when I think of, I want to be healed, I want to be whole, I want to be my highest self. I want to be true to myself and like live in honor and love for myself and others. So maybe love. Just like living in love.
We invite you to thewholenessnetwork.com, where you'll find the Wholeness Library. Inside, you'll find tutorials, downloads, mini classes, and all sorts of streaming content for you on your wholeness journey.